Good morning, everyone. Hello, Amy. How are you?
I'm great. Hello, Pierre.
For our audience, we have the pleasure of baptism by fire. We have Amy
Yes.
Collier. Did I
Yes.
pronounce that one right?
Collier. Yeah.
Collier. Okay,
Yeah.
because I know I mispronounced it last week when I was making fun of people that couldn't pronounce people's name.
Pierre Roma. Yeah. So yeah, I had to tease you about that.
Oh, so welcome aboard.
Thanks.
But
It's good to be back. I mean, technically, I was at Microsoft a few years back, and getting that blue badge is exciting, just as exciting the second time around. So, really excited to be on this team, and a bunch of goofy characters like you are fun to work with, and we get to talk about cool stuff. So, I'm really happy. Life is good.
Okay. I'm looking at the feed. We are a little
Something wrong?
well, we seem to be a little on the blurry side.
Oh.
So we'll see if our audience will tell us or if it's just me.
Yeah, I see us clearly.
Okay, so you see us clearly. Hopefully they see us clearly as well.
Okay.
All right. But you're not the only new person on the team. Starting this week, we've had 2 new team members added.
Yeah.
Or we've integrated the Azure Advocates or the Cloud Advocates security team to our own team. So we had Rod Trent. I have to make sure to not say Rob. My tongue normally goes that way. So Rod Trent and Joylyn Kiri. I know I didn't pronounce that properly. Rod is from the US and Joylyn is from Africa. So joining us from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So, Techie Lass say you have not figured out this malarkey just yet. I'm not sure. I think it's
maybe you need glasses.
StreamYard is having a little problem at our end, but
sure, blame the technology.
We'll blame in the technology because at our end it looks fine. I'm not quite sure what the broadcast is doing. We are live, and there's nothing I can do until we close the broadcast. That's great. So in the chat room right now, we have some of our regulars: Andrew McCallum, Rabbit Jr., Paul Jensen, Jay Gordon. Jay is not hosting, so he decided to hang out and heckle us. So that's great. Our boss is online.
Oh no! Don't make fun of him.
No, I'm always gonna make fun of him. Techie Lass, Anthony Bartolo, is here as well, but he's having espresso. Oh. And that's about it from what I can see. The people that are logged in our YouTubes. How about we get started with the news?
Sounds good.
So I think you're up.
All right, our first easy update that we thought was that's yours.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a morning. So yes, now GA is deployment enhancements for SQL Server and Azure virtual machines, which I think is pretty cool because when I was on the customer side, deploying from the template, DBAs have they want the T drive to be temp DB in a certain space. So now before deployment, you can configure the RAM allocation to the server, the drives for the logs. So I was actually walking through it, and as long as you click configure settings right before deploying, you can change and not accept the defaults. So it's pretty.
Not accepting the defaults.
Yeah, because the template, they just have a standard SQL template, but here you can change it to what your company standards are before deployment. Before you had to configure it after the fact. And this is for SQL on VM, so not to be confused with a managed instance or just Azure SQL. So it's SQL for virtual machines. So you pick your flavor of SQL, and then once you get to the advanced settings, there you go, SQL Server settings. And then when you scroll down, let's see,
Oh, you can
authentication.
enable SQL authentication or Windows authentication. That's kind of
Yeah.
cool. Your key vault integration for your encryption keys and so on. Yeah.
Hmm.
The other thing too that I was thinking is uh, considering that now you can configure all of your SQL that's running on a VM
Hmm.
through the portal. We also have the ability to configure that through ARM template or Bicep. So
Right.
if you're doing your CI/CD pipeline or some kind of deployment script, you can build in the SQL configuration right into your code. So when you're
Hmm.
deploying for dev or test or prod or pre-prod or whatever environments you have that you're managing for your dev team, um, you can have that directly into it as opposed to have to deploy the VM, install SQL, and then go in and fine tune. So which disk do
Exactly.
you put your temp DB on? Which disk do you put your logs on? Which disk do
Hmm.
you put your data on? So that's kind of cool.
It is cool. Yeah. And then once you deploy it, yeah, you can save it as an ARM template and deploy away.
Deploy away. So
Deploy away.
uh, really cool little improvements in the way we deploy our or configure our SQL on a VM. Great.
Mhm.
Our second item this week is generally available PowerShell on Linux OS in Azure Function. So when we talk about Azure Function, that's kind of part of the serverless area, but it's really not serverless. There is a server in the background that gets spun up that runs your code and then that disappears. It's
Mhm.
just not a server that you have to manage. Up to now, when you were using PowerShell in an Azure function, it was always a version of PowerShell that was running on Windows.
Mhm.
With this update now, you now have PowerShell running on the Linux in your function. So if you've developed your script using on a Linux server or Linux desktop or a Mac, which kind of like the Linux-ish
Yeah.
language that's in there.
Mhm.
If you've developed it on in those platforms, you've tested it on that platform, and you're comfortable, and your end, what you're going to be doing with that PowerShell is maybe affecting Linux VMs or any other workloads that are running on top of Linux, you can
Mhm.
now define your OS in your Azure function as running on Linux. So you can keep the same flavor of OS all the way through the development process of your script for that function. So it makes it really, really easy to test and easy to deploy.
Mhm.
So that was it for this one. Like I said, it's not a huge one, but it also helps with when you're doing it in Visual Studio.
Yeah.
You can test them in the Bash shell that comes into it, built into it, and that's about it. Do you want to jump into the next one? Because I think we're trying to catch up a little bit from the
All
time that we had.
right. Sure. What? Let's say. Okay, this is my favorite because the title is really. I had to read it like 3 times to even understand what it meant. So GA, the Azure Monitor Agent extension support for automatic upgrade extension feature, which basically means that Azure Monitor Agent can automatically upgrade your extensions.
It's a
So the agent's
mouthful, isn't
already
it?
an agent, I guess. So I definitely had to read up on this one because I'm like, what does this even mean? But you can enable opt-in to have your your automatic extensions upgrade. So when someone publishes something, like an extension you have it in a VM already, it'll roll it out, check the VM's healthy for like about 5 minutes, and if everything looks cool, all right, it's great. If it's not, it'll roll back automatically. So it's pretty cool. You have to be using the Azure Monitor agent. I know it still has some like functionality restrictions. So if
Yep.
you're rolling over to it versus like log analytics, but yeah, it sounds pretty cool if you want to stay up to date and keep security features into your VM and
Well, I find that the Azure, everybody knows I'm a big fan of Azure Monitor. Mostly it underpins every other service that we have, but it does give us great tools in terms of like monitoring, but also logging and alerting and using some Christo queries. Rod actually has a series on learning to use the query language. Um, we shall put the link at some point down here when I have it. I didn't think about it
Oh yeah.
before the show. Um, but the new agent is so much more versatile in terms of where you actually upload the data, what kind of data you have. Um, you define your data collection rules or your DCRs in Azure Monitor logs, and then it goes out. So if you can have multiple DCR for a single agent. So if you have a machine that is managed by a department in a larger corporation, you could have the departmental staff get the data in a log analytics workspace that they have, but you could also have it come to like a centralized log analytics workspace. Always careful to do that, because then you end up with ingesting the cost of the data twice. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
but it does kind of give you some flexibility as to what you want, or you could have your performance log go to this location, and you can have your application log go to another location. All depends on what you're trying to do. So it's very flexible that way. But as you mentioned, it's still not quite up to par. It's getting there, but it's going to take a while to the log analytics agent that we've had for a while now.
Right. And there is a process for migrating too that we have on our documentation. So if you think you're ready, there's a bunch of, make sure you're ready before you do it. So.
Oh yeah. But the nice thing is, because the way log analytics agent or the new Azure Monitor agent works, you can deploy it on a Azure Arc server. You can deploy it on a physical server. You can deploy it on a server that's in AWS or GPC. You can deploy it basically anywhere on any machine, Linux or Windows. So if you now have to keep track of all of the machines that you've deployed the agent to, so that when the next revision of the agent comes up and you have to go and manually update it or figure out a way to programmatically update it.
Where's that espresso?
Yeah, it's done. It's finished. And I'm alone in the house, so I can't just yell out, "Give me another espresso." So Anthony, if you're listening, could you run to the store, get me an espresso, and drive it over?
Yeah,
that'd be nice. Yeah, so having that, when now the agent can basically self-update or upgrade, makes it a lot more, in my opinion, easier to manage going forward.
Definitely.
But as you mentioned, make sure to read the documentation, because it's not quite at par with the other one.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely some restrictions.
Yeah. What else do we have? Oh, yes.
Another Azure Monitor.
Yeah, so it was the week for Azure Monitor.
Yeah.
So Azure Monitor diagnostic settings for Azure storage. In effect, what this means is our customers in the past have been asking, so when you have blob storage or file storage, Azure Files, any kind of storage in the cloud where people access files or data, in some cases for compliance or for security, you want to be able to log when the file was open, was read, was written, and all of those types of activities to it. Now, through the Azure, the configuration of the diagnostic settings, you can actually collect that long and send that to Azure Event Hub, so that your SEM or other tools or other queries, whatever, can actually pick up those things. So if you've got files that are restricted and you want to manage or monitor what's happening to them and who's accessing them and what's all of the items like that. You can easily do that now with Azure Monitor with the diagnostic setting for Azure Storage.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You just create the diagnostic setting, and then you collect, you select which resource logs you want, and then you can tell it where to go. And, you just pick some blob storage or, like you said, Event Hub, Log Analytics.
Yeah. Especially like that one was brought up to us by Rod when we were meeting yesterday to review the items that we had, saying on the security side of things, it's been something that's been in demand or missing for a long time. So we're glad that we can actually accommodate. And Anthony is replying to me saying that
6 hours.
it's going to take him 6 hours. Got to fed the sled dogs first. Yes, it is snowing here. We got almost 5 centimeters yesterday. We're expecting another 10, I think today or something like that.
We got 8 inches.
It's gonna be a white Christmas. A white weekend. And it is cold.
Is it? Well,
yeah, it's minus 20, I think, again.
Oh, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
We have also a little bit of a treat this week. Rod provided us with an update on Microsoft. I keep saying Azure Sentinel. It's Microsoft Sentinel. So how about we bring him in and let him tell us about it?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, there we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Rod Trent, Cloud Security Advocate, and this is what's new and exciting in security. While there's always a bunch of important product enhancements and feature announcements each week, there's one in particular this week I think worth highlighting. Microsoft Sentinel now supports MITRE techniques. Microsoft Sentinel customers have been expecting this update, and now it's finally arrived. MITRE techniques are now available for selection in the Microsoft Sentinel Analytics rule creation process. Up to now, Microsoft Sentinel has supported the primary MITRE attack tactics, which allows for the categorization of alerts and incidents based on the type of recognized threat tactic. And while these new techniques will be assigned automatically for the Microsoft created rules, customers can use this new capability to categorize their own rules. When you select a primary tactic in the analytics rule creation process, the techniques will display as selections. The techniques chosen will display in the actual incident when the incident or alert is generated. The MITRE techniques are also supported throughout Microsoft Sentinel, including things like automation and hunting. With this new feature in place, new and updated techniques can be delivered continuously. So when MITRE updates its tactics and techniques, the Microsoft Sentinel environment can reflect that. Again, I'm Rod Trent. Hope your day is super wonderful. Talk soon.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we met with Rod yesterday, and we said, "Hey, so what's going on with Microsoft Sentinel?" And he's like, "Oh, there's a bunch of things." And so
no one knows about them. So hey.
Exactly. It's like, okay, instead of you telling us what they are and us trying to articulate, why don't you just send us a little remote reporting? So there we go. Hopefully in the future we'll have more. Rod and Joylyn are going to be our very own security experts. So hopefully we'll get a lot more of that content to you coming soon on all of our platforms.
Redeploy the Spring ARM template. That was pretty funny. For
the Spring ARM template, yeah. Well, not quite yet. No,
it's okay.
I've got.
January's a year, then February's another year. Then
I got 2 more weeks before my trip. A bunch of guys we've rented some expedition skidoos or snowmobiles, and where we have like a 500 to 600 mile trip in northern Quebec through the woods and from one hunting lodge to another, and so I need a lot of snow for that. Cold, maybe not, but snow.
And a lot of layers, a
lot of layers. Yes, but we're Canadians. We're built for it. So
frozen beard and
considering we're at the point of this week where we're talking about events and community events. And so far this week, we didn't have any
What?
other than testing and production later today on the Patch and Switch Twitch channel. But in terms of like regular, there was no events that we were notified of. Microsoft is pretty quiet because I think we're in process of organizing build. I haven't seen any real
I haven't seen any updates or any
updates on that end. I believe Mr. Claus, our illustrious boss, is set to speak at the Glasgow user group. And yes, Tequilas, I am mangling that name of your town on meetups. So reach out to Tequilas. She'll give you all of the info, or it's on meetups.com. And I'm not quite sure what he's going to talk about, but he is not. He was a little late on his abstract. I assume he sent it in already. But
telling on him already too.
Oh well, you know, it's our platform to make fun of the boss.
I'm too new. I don't know.
You're too new for that. Yeah.
Mr. Boss. I'm like, whoa, who's that? Oh, Rick. Yeah.
Yes. But also we have our Learn module of the week.
Ooh,
Do
yes.
you want to cover that one since you talked about the actual topic?
Sure. Since we covered that Sql update, we figured, why don't you deploy Sql Server in a virtual machine? So this will walk you through and step by step, a little click through guide, deploying Sql Server on a VM. So an IaaS version. And,
so this is really how to like go through configuring SQL on a VM, which is something a lot of people are still doing. It's really a stopgap point in between on-prem and cloud native, but it
Right.
is very useful.
At least the capabilities have caught up. I remember that would hold us back a lot. Like we'd stay on-prem because SQL in the cloud didn't have all the SSIS, you couldn't set up all the right parameters, but now, I mean, you can always go IaaS and have all the functionality that you need.
Yeah, so I think there are still some portions like I think in Azure SQL, something like the reporting server and some of the integration parts that are not available on Azure SQL. So if this is something that you absolutely need, you'll need Microsoft SQL on a VM. But this Learn module will take you through it. So the basics of the infrastructure, setting that up versus the SaaS offering, and how to deploy your SQL environment.
Fun times.
So Amy, what did you think?
Not bad.
Not bad, eh?
Yeah.
You had
Everyone
nothing
said
to
you're
worry
scary
about.
and grumpy, and I was, like, what's he gonna toss?
No, that's my off-camera persona. The scary and grumpy.
You're bright and bubbly.
That's right. I have to put my best side forward when we're on camera.
Right.
I gotta configure NVIDIA broadcast so that it smooths my wrinkles and
can
takes
you do a
away.
filter for me? Like, yeah.
Well,
get rid of the wrinkles.
Thank you very much for joining us this week on your inaugural AZ update. Next week, we will our host will be none other than Rod Trent. So I'm expecting all of the noobs on our team to take turn. At some point, we'll get Vinicius. Air quotes for off-camera persona. Yes, Mr. Bartolo. I do have an off-camera persona.
Trolled. Wow.
I am getting
Gotta
trolled.
speak with Anthony,
but that's okay. I expect it from Anthony. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you very much. I hope that all of you have a great weekend. What do you got plans for this weekend?
Me, after my second week at Microsoft, I am decompressing and have a nice glass of wine by the fire, very just relaxed. My brain is on board and then learning. And then, you're going to present with Pierre. Oh, great. Thanks, Pierre. Rick said, take it easy and ease in. And you're like,
that was week 1. This is week 2.
Oh, okay. No, you're like, no. Get into the fire. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I appreciate it, though. It was great.
All right. Perfect. Well, everybody, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week on AZ Update.